Hello listener, I'm stuck in traffic, so I thought I'd make a little bit of a video. And I want to talk about cynicism and how ideas like romanticism and so on are destroyed by rationality. Something that I've been thinking a little bit about recently, because I've been thinking about how I thought about things in the past and how I think about them now. How I used to think about before the red pill and how I thought about them as a child and so on. And I've really noticed that both rational thinking destroys any sense of magic about the world, because you can fundamentally understand how everything is causally related. Like for example, lightning is magical if you don't really understand it. But if you understand the principles of electricity, you just understand that it's energy discharge, really. And the same thing goes, for example, with if you're a child, you're afraid of the dark, because the dark is mysterious and you can't see what's happening and you don't understand it. But as an adult, you're not really afraid of the dark. It's gone because you rationally understand the concept of darkness, as you rationally understand the concept of lightning, as you rationally understand the concept of many things. And that's one of the things about sociology. This is a concept from traditionalism that's not often talked about anymore, but it's demystification as a problem. Demystifying concepts like religion, concepts like folk tales and so on, makes them less valuable, because you don't really, if you understand something, its far away is affecting your mind, and it doesn't really matter too much anymore. And to be religious, you have to have a matter of true faith, which is why I have a complex relationship with Christianity, because in many ways I think of it as a fundamental expression of certain conceptual values that are inherent in European man, combined with certain traditions and certain perennial ideas and so on. But anyway, going back to rationality and so on, one of the things I've noticed is that the rationality part has destroyed many things in society that are should not be understood by the masses, because it makes it very hard to live as part of a community for the masses. At the same time, your leaders of your society should understand how these principles work, because otherwise you're going to have a bit of a shittily run society. And at the same time, it's not just rationality, it's also, if you get into these sorts of politics, it makes you cynical. Not just because rationality by default, I think, makes you somewhat cynical, but because you learn a lot of very depressing things. For example, if you learn about the MGTOW route, and MGTOW, I know it gets disparaged for women hate and so on, but the MGTOW has this very interesting side of it, which is basically sociological study between the sexes and how male hierarchies form, how women and men relate to each other and so on. It's all very interesting, like hypergamy as a phenomenon and so on. There's actual good research coming from MGTOW. And if you understand how women can never really truly love, and that they are hypergamous by nature, then that gives you a very, very cynical view of women, and you start to fundamentally distrust them. And that destroys the concept of true love and true romance, because if you can't believe that there's someone truly made for you, then, well, how can you really have true love? And that's kind of a bit of a thing. If you want to have romanticism in your politics, which is in many ways what traditional nationalism, especially of the 19th century, was, and which some traditionalist concepts do embrace and hold in them, especially religious concepts, you need to have magic and you need to have mystery. Religion, in its rituals, relies a lot on mystery. It's not for nothing that some religions have, their theology is called the mysteries. And if you remove that element of it, then you can't have faith. You remove it from relationships, you can't have love. And I've noticed that is a thing that happens with these politics. It makes you extremely black-pilled, extremely cynical. And it's not just women or religion, it's also, if you start to fundamentally understand how sociology works, how the psychology of the masses works, then that makes you view society in a very Machiavellian way, where things are either being manipulated or are manipulating, and there's no nothing organic, nothing truthful. There is merely power plays and power games. Sorry, one moment, I have to change lanes here. I think there's an accident up ahead. Really, the mystification is a concept that I don't often hear enough about, which I find really saddening because, God damn it, get out of the way. Alright. Because I think it's a real serious problem that you have with modern scientific societies. You can't. Firstly, I don't believe the masses are capable of being truly rational. I believe in Voltaire said it's all fine and well for the elite to be atheistic, but the mass need religion. And frankly, most traditionalist philosophers have this theory that religion is the binding and the narrative for the mass of the people. But the elite can be rational. The elite can be afforded to understand things. But if you give it to the masses, it just destroys all the magic. And they become cynical themselves. The whole underlying society becomes cynical. I think that's what we see with modernity in many ways, that the mass has nothing to believe in because it's all been destroyed by rationality. You can't believe in religion. The Bible's been proven to be wrong on so many points. It's all superstitious nonsense. I don't think that that's really what the Bible is. I think religious texts are codifications in the form of stories of moral principles which reveal fundamental sociological principles about humanity. But you demystify that, the mass gets lost. The mass doesn't believe it anymore. And they are fed a new narrative of cultural Marxism, because the mass always has to have some narrative. And even us, or like even people who are more, who spend more time thinking about the bugaboos and moral codes of society, get lost in some of them. It's this phenomenon that, like, it's well known. I forget what the name is, but if an expert reads a newspaper article about his subject, he'll always notice that there's quite a lot wrong with it, and it's very simplistic at best. But then he reads another newspaper article about a subject that's outside of his area of expertise, and he takes it to be, well, this must be well informed, and this must be the truth. The thing is that news stories and so on are all completely bare bones at best, manipulative at worst, and therefore the narratives created by this modern leftist society I forget what point I was going to, but you get the idea. These politics makes you a bit cynical. Demystification is a bad thing for the broad masses, but at the same time I don't really see how you can turn that back, this demystification thing, because you can't counter science with wishful thinking. You still need to deal with reality such as it is. You can't lie. I mean, I know that the Marxists and so on have somewhat successfully based society on lies, but you see what the result of basing a society on lies is. It makes a dysfunctional society. It makes a society that turns against itself. It's going to fall apart at some point. And that's something I'd be really interested in, is to create a society, or to think about ideas that can combine traditional principles, that can combine faith, religion, romance with science, with rationality. I'm not sure it can really be done, but a start would be something like theosophical sort of ideas, where you combine naturalist truths with mysticism, something like that. Oh, that's something, I've been thinking about, and I'm almost at my exit. It's a bit of a rambly video, but you get some of the concept, right? It's a subject worth thinking about. See you next time.